Before we begin the service, I'm going to ask all of you that if you have brought into the sanctuary with you any kind of device that makes noise, like a cell phone or any kind of thing that might even make notifications, to please silence it at this point so that it doesn't disturb the sanctity of our service. And I'm going to ask those who are wearing the Kriya ribbons to please rise at this time. And we offer this blessing to show that the fabric of our lives is forever changed. And like this fabric, our hearts are torn. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Dayan ha'emet.
In times of mourning, our hearts turn toward the psalmists. Esainai el harim me'ayin yavo Ezri me'im Adonai Ose shamayim va'aretz alitin lamot raglecha Yanum shomrecha Hine lo yanum velo yishan shomer Yisrael Adonai shomrecha Adonai tzilcha al yad yeminecha Yomam hashemesh lo yakeka veyareach balayla Adonai yishmorcha mikol ra ישמור את נפשך, אדוני ישמור צאתך ובואך מעתה מעתה ועד עולם.
God, what are we that you have regard for us? What are we that you are mindful of us? We are like a breath. Our days are as a passing shadow. We come and go like grass, which in the morning shoots up, renewed, and in the evening fades and withers. You cause us to revert to dust, saying, "Return, O mortal creatures. Would that we were wise, that we understood whither we are going. For when we die, we carry nothing away. Our glory does not accompany us. Mark the wholehearted and behold the upright. They shall have peace, God. You redeem the soul of your servants, and none who trust in you shall be desolate." We cannot speak of Rachel's life without reading from the book of Proverbs about an Eshet Chayil, a woman of valor. A woman of valor, who can find? She is more precious than corals. Her husband places his trust in her and profits only thereby. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. She opens her hands to the poor and reaches out her hands to the needy. She has no fear of the snow for her household, for all her household is dressed in fine clothing. She is robed in strength and dignity, and she smiles at the future. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and a lesson of kindness is on her tongue. Her children rise up and make her happy. Her husband praises her. Give her credit for the fruit of her labors, and let her achievements praise her. Grace is elusive and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears God, she shall be praised. Many women have excelled, but you, Rachel, excel them all. In Ecclesiastes it is written, to everything there is its season, a time for every purpose under heaven, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to pull down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them up, a time to embrace and a time to let go, a time to be born and a time to die.
We gather together today to mourn one who no longer walks among the living. With Rachel's sudden death, there is tremendous loss, an emptiness, and a void which never again will be filled. When Rachel was born, the world was transformed. Her life graced our world, enriched it, and with her death just days ago, that unique person is no longer, and again, our world has been transformed. David, to lose Rachel, your wife of over 44 years, is so very devastating. We wish to comfort and love you during this holy and sorrowful moment. Rachel told me the story of how you met and how you chased her till she caught you. Together you built an amazing legacy, this beautiful family, and together you were the stalwarts of this congregation. You'd be here earlier than everyone else, quietly setting up and making sure everything was right before the crowds appeared. This is truly such a loss for you today, and we who wish to comfort you will continue to do so in the coming weeks and months. And to Rachel's daughters, Laurel, Stacy, and Anna, and Bhavin, Matt, and Ray, to lose your mother and mother-in-law is so devastating. And I hope that you will take comfort in knowing how much you meant to her. You were truly the lights of her life. She was so devoted to you, both when you were young children and then as the incredible adults that you've become. For the first 8 years that I was here as associate rabbi, I would hear all about you guys, from your time at Azrui to the time you were in college, and finally how each of you met and then married your husbands. And let me tell you, she was not just a mother-in-law to you gentlemen. She adored you guys as well. And after I'd hear all about her daughters, I'd hear all about the men she married and the work you do and how much she loved spending time with you and your families. And it was clear that you guys brought her so many reasons to kfel, to beam with joy, as she spoke about you with tremendous pride. Rachel adored all of her children and was so grateful that her daughters had found such loving and devoted partners to complement their lives as she had with David. But if David was the sun and you ladies were the moon, her grandchildren, Mira, Ariana, Sasha, Chloe, Lily, Archie, and Micah, were the stars of Rachel's universe. I stopped hearing about her children, not that you became chopped liver, but as soon as Mira was born, all she spoke about was the grandchildren, with such pride, and you guys brought her so much nachas, so much joy. So your loss today is so devastating as well, and we grieve with you in your sorrow today. And to her siblings, Karen and Mark, we'd also hear about you as well. She loved her siblings, and she would tell us stories of the times that you guys had growing up in Michigan and about the times you had with your cousins, and then how you all navigated taking care of your mother, Elaine. But there's no way to be prepared for the death of a sibling, and I know you often spoke with her and stayed very current in each other's lives, and our hearts go out to you in your loss as well. And to all of her friends and her students and everyone here at our Congregation Etz Chaim community, this is truly a huge loss for all of us. Yesterday, we did sort of like a brain dump of all the things that we believed Rachel had done for us in this community, and we realized that Rachel's like a unicorn. She was so unique in the disparate skill sets that she embodied. She was gracious and welcoming, warm and caring, skilled and talented. And the lives that she's touched here at the congregation for the past almost 5 decades has been endless. From mahjong to inclusion specialist, from teacher to docent, to friend, to tutor, to welcoming presence and the congregational fixture that she was everywhere at our congregation all the time. And we realized that it will take probably 10 to 15 people, both paid professionals and volunteers, to even begin to fill the void that Rachel has left. And so we gather here today to celebrate her life, to embrace the pain that we all feel at her departure, and we mourn her death. We all together collectively feel a tremendous loss and emptiness. Rachel's entire essence permeated our world and enriched it in so many ways. At this time, I want to invite forward Rabbi Weiner to read some remarks from Rachel's husband, David.
These are words from David. 50 years ago, in the summer of 1974, a young lady moved into the apartment adjacent to my apartment in Aurora, Illinois. She was only 21 years old and already had a master's degree in speech pathology. She was very sociable. I was not. I didn't know what she saw in me, but I was one of the early people to fall under her influence. As I see all the messages coming in over the last few days, I marvel at the many, many subsequent lives that Rachel had influenced over the next 50 years, and I am very lucky. I recall that she did not like my nerdy country boy wardrobe. I was not hip. This was the mid-'70s, mind you, so one of the first things that she did was to go out and buy me a leisure suit. And now I'm cool. I fell in love with that young lady. I knew that she was a very special person. In the years to come, we traveled together all over the country and were a team. After she twisted my arm a bit, I asked her to make it permanent and become my wife. We were married in a small ceremony right here in front of this ark on March 29th, 1980. Then came the most beautiful family that we could possibly imagine. Laurel, Stacy, and Anna were Rachel's pride and joy. She would do anything for them. But wait, it gets better. The 3 daughters grew up and married 3 dream sons-in-law. And then came the best thing in life. Rachel loved her grandkids. Mira, Ariana, Sasha, Chloe, Lily, Archie, and Micah were so special to her. She loved spending time with them, even if it was FaceTime from a distance. Rachel always felt the necessity to give gifts. Every holiday, anniversary, birthday, or life cycle event for anyone she knew required her to get them a gift. The grandkids can tell you about the Hanukkah gifts. She would keep an eye out all year, and she could be heard from time to time saying, "Oh, that would be a good Hanukkah gift." Sorry, kids, Grandpa will not be doing a big Hanukkah splurge. To the members of the congregation and community at large, Rachel is gone. We ask ourselves, what can I do? What would Rachel want? I think the answer is clear. Is there anyone who has come through the doors here and not experienced a warm greeting from Rachel in the lobby? If not, you have seldom walked through the doors. Rachel was passionate about making everyone feel welcome and accepted regardless of their physical abilities, their intellectual abilities, their age, their gender, their social status, their economic status, or their ethnic background. What Rachel would want is for us to carry on with her work. It will be tough because there was no one like Rachel.
At this time, I'm going to invite forward Rachel's brother and sister, Karen and Mark.
Hi, my name's Mark. I was Rachel's favorite brother.
And I'm Karen, Rachel's favorite sister.
Rabbi, I just want to agree with you. I would talk to Rachel every Shabbat, at least once a week, if not twice. The first 15 minutes were about the grandkids. They were very surprised when I saw them for the first time in a while that I knew everything about them. Because when you hear it for 52 weeks, you know what's going on. So you are absolutely right. They are the stars. I want to thank the congregation for turning out. Eitz Chaim was her second family. There's no doubt about it. I remember it was about 12 years ago we were sitting here when you paid tribute to Rachel for everything she had done up to that point in time with this congregation. It was amazing, and it was more amazing that you provided a trip for her and David to go to Israel. She wanted to go to Israel all her life. It was the most amazing trip that they had. I was fortunate. I've been to Israel a number of times before that and after that, and we still talked about it every day. So thank you. You were her second family, and I'm sure she's thinking about you right now. I also want to say hi to all the people on live stream, especially my sons, Max and Sam. Thank you for showing up. What we want to do first is, just like the family has received lots of people and tributes via phone and cells and calls, I've been able to get a number of emails from Rachel's friends growing up. I want to read one before Karen and I have a little couple comments. This is from her best friend growing up, Ellen Wine, we'll call her. That's not her married name, but it was Ellen Wine. Dear Mark, I am saddened beyond words. First of all, my condolences to you and your family. Larry, another lifelong friend, let me know that Rachel passed away, and it was a gut punch that still has me staggered. I am heartbroken for all of you. I am heartbroken for myself. Rachel and I were joined at the hips as kids, as you well know. How many times did I sleep over at your house on Saturday night while Ralph and Elaine were out? And when I was a bratty young brother at the time, I would sneak under the bed before they came back in the room to go to bed and surprise them when they came back in. And Rachel and I were your babysitters. She and I shared about every aspect of our childhoods, being the only two Jewish girls in our grade at school and in our class at the synagogue. And to that fact that our parents became good friends and our lives couldn't have been more entwined. My goodness, we even both worked at our dad's businesses, dry cleaning and plumbing. Ours was a friendship of approximately 65 years, a little bit more than you and Dave. I feel I just lost a piece of myself. We kept in touch over all these years and had fallen into a rhythm of a phone call from time to time. Her life was so busy with her work and her devotion to David and her daughters and the grandkids. Since childhood and through adulthood, I always marveled at Rachel's get-it-done attitude, as everybody has described, and abilities. I mean, if something needs to get done, who would possibly be better at accomplishing that than Rachel? Actually, my sister Roberta might come close. The last time I saw her was in La Jolla when she was at your son's wedding. We had such a wonderful visit and shared a good laugh at the fact that we both thought each other looked just like our moms. Mark, please extend my condolences to David, to Karen, to all of you. I wish you peace and healing. Rachel will be in my heart and thoughts. Always take care. Ellen. And she even heard, when I sent her the obit, she wanted us to make a donation to the Inclusion Fund, which we have already done on our own. Karen wanted to share a couple of stories from when they were growing up, because they were 5 and 7 years older than me. Karen and Rachel, believe it or not, would get in trouble from time to time. A few times. But what they were smart enough to do is when they got in trouble, they snuck into another room where there was a phone. And they called our grandfather. Because they know if they called the grandfather, the mom was going to get a call to stay off their backs and forgive them. I used that same trick growing up also. Also, as organized as Rachel was and does everything, Rachel's not always the neatest person in the world. As if you go down to her office, I've heard, you would find that. But the reality of it is, my mom would do the laundry. She would put the clothes on the bed. Karen would put her clothes away. Rachel would go under the covers and sleep that night without putting the clothes away. Now, another thing you probably don't realize, Rachel invented Uber. Because Rachel would give me a ride wherever I wanted without charging me, which was great. Though I did pay her in kind from time to time. But one of my favorite stories of Rachel, and Karen is in this, they were throwing, I guess we all were throwing a surprise 25th anniversary party for my parents. Well, I knew if I threatened to tell my parents about this party all the time, I could get pretty much anything I wanted. Until they called Grandpa, and Grandpa came down and talked to me and told me about it. What I always think about Rachel, and I'm going to close with this, is if you look up the word nice in the dictionary, you're going to find that picture. She embodied niceness, empathy. And she was always there not only for her family, her grandchildren, the synagogue, the people she worked with professionally, and especially Karen and I. She was our matriarch. She was the glue of our family that over the years pulled us together. And I just saw one thing. I want to thank this congregation. Rabbi Bob, you were part of this. You started it, Rabbi. You were so great to our mother even before she moved in with Rachel and David. But when she moved in to Rachel and David, you took her as part of your family. And she loved coming here, Elaine. The last thing I want to say is we all have a void. We all have a hole in our heart. But we're also better off for knowing Rachel would. Thank you.
At this time, I'm going to invite Rachel's daughters.
So as everyone said, thank you for everyone in the room. This is a true testament to just how special our mom was. She was selfless from the start, a loving and incredibly devoted grandmother, mother, wife, sister, daughter, teacher, colleague, and friend to so many. For years, she put herself second while simultaneously taking care of her own mother, us, my dad, and the grandchildren. Our mom was strong-willed, but never lacked empathy. She found the light in every single person that she met. She gave back so much more to the world than she ever took in, especially in her natural role as a teacher. There were times growing up where we remembered having to stay longer here after Hebrew school waiting for our mom to finish a meeting, or when she missed our school events for one of her own obligations. And as we grew up,
We learned to understand and accept that this was just who our mother was. We learned to enjoy helping her at fundraising events for work and to support all of her efforts at the temple. We learned how important family, friends, and community were. Although we are still processing everything, we have a different perception of her dedication now. We just see how many people she has touched more clearly and the legacy she will leave. We are at peace understanding the fulfillment she endured. Everything she did has such a profound meaning. We are inspired to continue to strive for fulfillment in our lives with our students, patients, communities, and friends.
Judaism and synagogue life were such a huge part of my mom's identity. But there was one other mantra that she lived by. She would always say to us, "If there is a will, there is a way." This mantra led her to not only offer, but also insist on doing things, like watching 7 kids by herself while also preparing a Shabbat dinner. It led us to so many occasions of being together simply because we knew if there was a will, there was a way, and my mom would be upset if we did not all make it. It led her to never let anyone down, and it taught us to have the confidence to go after our own dreams. We know that there are a lot of proud grandmas out there, but our mom lived for her grandkids, as you guys have heard. She was just so special to each of them. She had the patience and the understanding that we lacked at all stages. She never imposed beliefs in parenting. She was just there for the kids and for us as parents. She had a knack for understanding each child and appreciating them for who they were. Her selflessness and devotion to others had an amazing way of rewarding her with a rich life filled with passion, love, and community. She was a wonderful mom who would do anything for her family. We will miss her deeply, and we can only hope that our children carry on her legacy.
At this time, I invite Rachel's grandchildren to the bima: Mira, Ariana, Sasha, Chloe, Lily, Archer, and Micah.
We are the grandchildren of Rachel Wood. She was an awesome grandma, and we had many great memories with her. Today, we will each share one with you of our greatest memories.
2 years ago in 2022 for Hanukkah, she brought us on a trip to Disney World. She gave us a suitcase and told us to open it. We didn't find a paper inside that said we were going to Disney World on it and a lot of other fun supplies for Disney World. During the trip, we went on a lot of fun rides and made great memories.
I was in town last summer, and I was staying at her house with all my cousins when Grandma decided to take us bungee jumping at the mall. It was my first time bungee jumping, and I was really excited. It was 10 minutes we got to spend on the machine, and I loved it. I will always remember it.
This year on Thanksgiving, Grandma took us to the Sound of Music. She made us bags of candy to sneak into the theater. The Sound of Music was very cool play, and I loved it. Grandma loved taking us to plays, and it got me interested in theater. Now I will always think of her when I see or perform a play.
On Hanukkah, Grandma didn't just get us one gift. She got us one for every night. She did this for all 7 cousins. That's 56 gifts. My favorite gift is when she got us a trip to Disney World. She always puts maximum effort into making us happy every Hanukkah it will remind me of her.
Grandma always loved helping me. I remember one year when I was in 3rd grade for Passover, I was at her house. Me and my sister stayed at her house the night before Passover. I was trying to learn how to say the 4 questions for Passover dinner, but I was struggling to learn it. So me and Grandma spent all day trying to learn it, and I finally did. When dinner came around, I proudly recited the 4 questions. I felt super proud and happy. That memory I shared with you was one of the many times she went out of her way to help me. I will now always know the 4 questions because of her.
Grandma loved helping Archie with speech and took him to speech therapy, bought him speech-related foods, and practiced with him. She got him to try new foods and was super patient with him. Archie has better speech and likes more foods now because of Grandma.
Micah loved that Grandma came to visit her in New York City so many times. She loved having her visit and bring gifts and eat dinner with them.
We all love you, Grandma. And we will always miss you so much.
In the old days, before I came to the synagogue for a service or an event, I thought about what my personal tasks would be and about who I would see when I would get here, who I was going to see. I knew that Rachel would be here, and I knew that I could count on Rachel to fill me in on what I had to do. Rachel always paid attention to what was going on. Our sanctuary is filled to overflowing today, but without Rachel, it seems empty. I realize that we share a sense of shock that we are here today for Rachel's funeral. I have heard Rachel described as the heart and soul of the congregation. I agree. She cared about us as individuals and about our congregation as a whole. I've heard Rachel described as the spine of this congregation. I agree. She gave our community structure and she kept us standing upright. Rachel was my partner in so much of my work here. When I first came to the synagogue, I did all the training of the young people for the B'nai Mitzvah. After I was here a few years, at a temple board meeting, one of the board members said, "The rabbi is spending too much of his time on all these lessons." Another board member said, "Well, okay, but who else could do the B'nai Mitzvah lessons?" A third board member, named Rachel Wood, spoke up and said, "I can," and she could. For decades, Rachel took the lead in preparing 13-year-olds to become B'nai Mitzvah. I felt that Rachel and I were partners in saving the Jewish people, one 13-year-old at a time. She trained hundreds and hundreds of our young people, encouraging them and helping them. Rachel brought out the best in them. She helped the reluctant shine. She understood how each 13-year-old learned. She helped everyone overcome the obstacles they faced. Rachel understood how to help our students blossom. Rachel and I led the annual B'nai Mitzvah parents meeting, during which we distributed the dates and explained the rules. We felt comfortable leading the meeting together, switching back and forth. I knew what Rachel wanted to say, and Rachel knew what I wanted to say. We could have done each other's parts. Rachel was a stalwart of the ritual and religious committee, paying attention to the small details and the big ideas, thinking about how proposed innovations would impact the various segments of the congregation. For years, Rachel played a leading role in organizing the high holiday honors. Rachel understood which section of the service was right for each of our members. During the high holiday services, Rachel paid careful attention to all the details. Rachel helped me succeed in so many ways. She would let me know who I needed to speak with. Sometimes people had concerns, but they were reluctant to speak directly to me. So they told Rachel, and she let me know. Rachel even helped me learn that sometimes I need to speak quietly. As you all know, my default volume is loud, and for emphasis, louder. Rachel helped me understand that with certain people, a softer voice is more appropriate. While I think of this as my Mr. Rogers voice, I learned it from Rachel. Rachel and I enjoyed sharing inside jokes and small observations. We saw the entertaining aspects of congregational life. Sometimes something would happen during a program or during a service. Rachel would look at me, I would look at Rachel, we would both smile, each saying to ourselves, oh well. Now, at this time of year, late in the morning, the sun shines through the skylight. On Saturday morning at about 11:15, it hits exactly where Rabbi Wayner is sitting now. Each year, Rachel and I were very entertained by this. And I would be sitting in the empty seat, really where I was sitting this morning, and the sun would hit Rachel in the eyes, and I would laugh. And 4 minutes later, it hit me in the eyes, and Rachel would laugh. And for us, it was a joke that we were entertained with every year. We saw it as the solar announcement of the coming of June. And I was so happy I walked in, there was a sunny day, and here's the sun shining on the bima. It's for you, Rachel. The Torah portion for this week is Bamidbar. I'm sorry, it's in my contract, I have to say that once. Every rabbi has to say it at least once a week, otherwise we're not fulfilling our obligation. The Torah portion for this week is Bamidbar. It's my bar mitzvah portion. I'm not going to chant my Haftorah, don't worry. I was a difficult bar mitzvah student. I was fine on the Hebrew, but I was ashamed of my inability to chant properly. 2 weeks before my bar mitzvah, my mother said to the cantor who was doing my training, "When should I bring Stephen in for his lesson next week?" The cantor replied, "Better he is not going to get." If Rachel Wood had been my bar mitzvah tutor, it would have been a much more positive experience for me. Rachel always helped our young people know that they could get better, and she knew how to help them succeed. Rachel helped us all to do better. Rachel helped us all to succeed.
On page 44 of Rachel's Western Michigan University yearbook, it says, involvement. To be involved is to be. Rachel took these words to heart and lived them. She was involved. In fact, I'd venture to say that Rachel was probably the best prototype of a volunteer and employee that we could have ever had. And not just for us. I believe that Rachel embodied a work ethic that came from a bygone era. Instead of slowing down when she retired, Rachel sped up. The night before she passed away, she was still texting B'nai Mitzvah families and sending out emails, preparing for when she would be able to continue teaching and being a part of the inclusion committee. Our community has been extremely affected by Rachel's life and now her death. I'm going to read just a few reflections from various people whose lives she touched. Joel Spenadel said, "Rachel has been one of the pillars of my adult life. She has been to me both a role model and mentor. She ensured Jacob had a proper Jewish education. His bar mitzvah might have been the best day of my life other than my wedding and the birth of my 2 kids, and Rachel made sure that Jacob shone brightly on that day, as she did for Hannah and over the decades for all of our children with or without special needs." I recall that along with Aunt Stein, Rachel was prominent in encouraging this banker to take on the role of teaching Jacob and Miles during their pre-confirmation years, which has led to one of my proudest accomplishments, becoming a veteran Sunday school teacher, at least by typical standards, albeit not by Rachel's remarkable run of 45-plus years. Daniel Frankel, one of Rachel's inclusion students from the West Suburban Chaverim, said, "Rachel set up art classes once a month on Sunday afternoons for the special needs community at Etz Chaim. This gave us a chance to talk, network with each other, and do a couple of fun activities and learn more about the community. I'm really going to miss Rachel very much. I'm going to miss saying hi to her every Sunday morning during religious school." Barbara Turner, friend and colleague of Rachel, said, "In the late 1970s and early 80s, when I was still Mrs. Siegel and Rachel was Miss Merkovitz, when she joined the Deaf and Hard of Hearing department at Hinsdale South High School, where I had already been teaching English for a few years, some teenagers didn't mind spending time with a speech therapist, but others typically looked for ways to avoid this instruction that was often chosen for them by their parents. Once Rachel began to focus on the individual student's ability to use speech and auditory training along with sign language and writing as part of their whole communication process, more students saw the relevance and found value in going to speech. After a couple of years, Rachel married David and left Hinsdale South and turned her attention to early childhood development. She soon began working with parents and kiddos birth through 3 years old in the Oak Layton Early Intervention Program. We lost touch until 1985, when we were surprised to see each other in the receiving line after my niece's Sarah Dunn's bat mitzvah. It was then that I learned that Rachel was the B'nai Mitzvah tutor, as among many other things, at Etz Chaim. Fast forward to 2006, when we joined the congregation, and I learned how much Rachel was already doing to make the congregation more inclusive, and how she enlisted others of us on this journey. From sitting down with parents to help determine religious school and Hebrew education needs, to making sure we had an amplification system, closed captioning, ASL interpreters, fidget stations, large print materials, headsets to block out distracting sound, training madrichim and the board members about inclusion, celebrating Jadaim, and most recently, creating social programs for young adults in the West Suburban Jewish community. Rachel knew when we first worked together the importance of looking at the individual, helping them reach their potential, and become a valued member of their community. May Rachel's inspiration guide us as we continue the work she found so meaningful. We all know that Rachel was a masterful teacher. She intuitively knew how to best address each student, what they needed, and how to approach their learning style so they could be successful, which is why her death leaves us all breathless. How can we imagine a world without Rachel's presence in it? She was always at the temple, at services, serving on the R&R committee, the religious school committee. She was a docent, a high holiday volunteer coordinator, B'nai Mitzvah tutor, inclusion specialist, advocating for inclusion and accommodations in every aspect of the synagogue. She was passionate about preserving the history of the congregation, but she also saw the necessity to be able to move forward into the future so that the congregation would be attractive to the next generation. Rachel believed in inclusion because she herself used to love to be a part of and be included in the different parts of the community. She loved coming to staff lunches with us for birthdays. She loved coordinating the Mahjong group and the high holiday Torah readers every year. She loved helping others from her experience. And Rachel was often always right. Like the time she looked at my infant child and said, "Your son Joe has torticollis, take him to the pediatrician and get him treated." And she was right, he did have torticollis, but his neck is fine today because of her early intervention. Rachel was my friend, my coworker, and my advisor for all things inclusion. When we started the inclusion work, transitioning her from classroom teacher to inclusion specialist, I knew nothing about inclusion. Rachel taught me. She taught us all, and we have grown from saying we were an inclusive community to showing we are inclusive in every aspect of the DNA of the congregation. From classrooms to kitchen to the library to the sanctuary, Rachel's stamp and consistent commitment to hard work to this cause has been built over the years. Rachel did not seek glory. In fact, she only let us honor her one time when we sent her and David on the one-time trip to Israel as a thank you after 30-plus years of teaching. Rachel hated the spotlight, but she loved to be included and welcomed into the inner sanctum of the congregation. At every B'nai Mitzvah ceremony, Rachel was in the inner sanctum of the family simcha. She would say every Saturday morning, as she handed out gifts and certificates on behalf of the brotherhood and sisterhood of the congregation, to show that the kids have completed the requirements necessary to make this day possible. Before every B'nai Mitzvah service, Rabbi Weiner and I would sign each certificate and then hand them to Rachel to sign, and Rachel signed in the president of the congregation spot. Now, Rachel was never officially the temple president, but I can say that she has definitely been the longest-serving president that this congregation has had. And so we stand together bereft at her passing. We will miss Rachel. She truly graced our world, improved it, and enriched it, and she left us a legacy of service, of avodah, of an unmatched work ethic and devotion and commitment to family and Jewish people, and of course, the legacy of inclusion and love. It's my hope that this legacy that she leaves to us will continue to inspire and guide us through all the days of our lives, and will continue Rachel's legacy of inclusion and accommodation by creating the Rachel Wood Memorial Inclusion Endowment. And I hope that by creating this endowment, we'll be able to fund it so that Rachel's legacy can be perpetuated and the work of inclusion of which she was so passionate can continue at the congregation for at least as many decades as she served. And in this way, death cannot separate her from us. For when we remember Rachel's love, she will continue to live on, even in death.
We turn now back to the words of the Psalms, and I'll invite you to join me with reading Psalm 23, which can be found in your pamphlet. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. You make me lie down in green pastures. You lead me beside the still waters. You restore my soul. You guide me in straight paths for your name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Though death is strong, it can never take from you the memories you hold, the feelings you cherish, the images forever etched upon your hearts and souls. Know that there were many more stories to tell, and others who could have shared them with us. This is what Rachel would have wanted. She would have wanted us to celebrate her life by sharing our stories and memories of her, and by doing so, drawing comfort from them. For through them, you are forever bound to this woman whom we gather to mourn this day. For when we remember her legacy of love and service, she will continue to live on, even in death.
I invite you now to rise if you are able.
אלמלא רחמים שוכן במרומים המציאנו כנכונה תחת כנפי השכינה עם קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים את נשמת רחל שפרי בת רפואל יצחק ומירה גיטל שהלכה לעולמה בעל הרחמים יסתיריה בסתר כנפיו לעולמים ויצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתה אדוני הוא נחלתה ותנוח בשלום על משכבה ונאמר Amen.
Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in the sheltering presence of your wings to Rachel Merkowitz Wood, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge forever in your eternal presence, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her eternal inheritance. May she rest in peace, and let us say Amen. I ask you now to turn in your pamphlet as together, the mourners, we recite Kaddish Yatom. Yit Gadal v'yit Kadash Shemei Rabba Ba'al Mira Divrach Hirutei v'amlich Malchutei B'chayei Chon u'v'yomei Chon u'v'chayei Dechol Beit Yisrael Ba'agala u'v'zman Kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabba mevarach le'alam u'mei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitframan v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yit'alel v'yithalal shemei dekudesha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Da'amiran be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. You may be seated.
May the source of peace comfort those who mourn and those who are bereaved among us as we say together, Amen. At this time, I'm going to invite the family to depart from the sanctuary and invite all the rest of you to stay around to partake in a little luncheon in the afternoon in the social hall with a Shiva Minyan at 2:30.